Today, we will tell you about the many circumstances that led to the 1993 Long Island Railroad shooting. Colin Ferguson was born on January 14, 1958 in Kingston, Jamaica, to May Ferguson and Von Herman. Herman was the working director for Hercules Agencies, a big pharmaceutical company. He was highly regarded as a prominent business person in Jamaica. But, unfortunately, things would change and evolve into a disastrous life for Colin. Before we move further, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tap that bell icon before it taps you. Colin and his brothers enjoyed many of the privileges that come with wealth in a city where extreme poverty is common. He attended Caliber High School and, from all appearances, was a good student who participated in sports. At the time of his graduation in 1974, his grade average was in the top third of his class. Ferguson's peaceful life came to an unexpected halt in 1978 when his father died in a car crash. His mother also died from cancer not long afterward. Soon after both parents passed away, Colin Ferguson had to cope with the loss of the family fortune. All the damages left him deeply disturbed. Journey to the USA. At the age of 23, Ferguson decided to leave Kingston and move to the USA on a visitor's visa, hoping for a new start and a good job on the East Coast. It did not take long for his excitement to turn to real frustration. The only jobs he could find were low-paying and unskilled, and he blamed racism in America. 3 years after his arrival in the USA, he met and married Audrey Warren, an American citizen of Jamaican origin, who understood the cultural differences that affected her husband's capability to get along. She was very patient and understanding when he lost his temper and went into wraths, expressing his racial bigotry toward the white people who he thought stood in his way. Playing with the law. In 1991, Ferguson moved to Brooklyn, where he was unemployed, and rented a room in the Flatbush neighborhood. At the time, it was a common area for the West Indian immigrants, and Ferguson relocated right into the middle. But he kept to himself, hardly saying anything to his neighbors. During 1992, his ex-wife, who hadn't seen Ferguson since the separation, filed a complaint against him, claiming Ferguson had pried open the trunk of her vehicle. Anger had already been boiling up deep inside Ferguson, and he was getting eerily close to his breaking point. During February, he was taking the subway when a woman tried to sit in an empty seat just beside him. She requested him to move over, and Colin Ferguson began screaming at her, pressing his leg and elbow against her until the police intervened. Compensation claim. It took 3 years for his workers' compensation case against Ademco Security Group to be settled down. He was awarded almost $26,250, which he found disappointing. Declaring that he was still suffering from the pain, he met with a Manhattan attorney named Lauren Abramson about filing a new lawsuit. Abramson later said she asked a law clerk to join the meeting because she found Colin Ferguson to be uncomfortable and threatening to be around. When the law firm rejected the case, Colin Ferguson blamed members of the firm for discrimination. During one phone call, he straightforwardly referenced a massacre in California. Many at the firm started locking their inner office doors. Fed up with the city of New York, Ferguson relocated to California in April 1993. He applied for numerous jobs but was never hired. That very same month, he spent about $400 on a Ruger P89 9mm pistol in Long Beach. He began carrying the weapon inside a paper bag after he was robbed by 2 African Americans. During May 1993, Colin Ferguson relocated back to New York City because, as he clarified to a friend, he did not like competing for jobs with Hispanics and immigrants. After he returned to New York, he appeared to be deteriorating swiftly. Speaking in the third person, he went on rants about blacks striking down their oppressors and pompous rulers. He showered many times a day and chanted non-stop about all the black people killing all the white people. Colin Ferguson was requested to vacate his apartment by the end of the month. The shooting. On December 7th, Colin Ferguson boarded a 5:33 p.m. Long Island commuter train departing the Pennsylvania station for Hicksville. On his lap was his gun and almost 160 rounds of ammunition.
Gunshots and bloodshed and a fearful tragedy for commuters headed home.
It was a deadly rush hour on board a Long Island Railroad train as a lone gunman opened fire. The terror struck
As the train moved toward the Maryland Avenue station, Ferguson stood up and systematically began shooting at passengers on both sides, pulling the trigger about every half second and just repeating, "I'm going to get you." After emptying two 15-round magazines, he was reloading a third when passengers Michael Kevin Bloom, O'Connor, and Mark McIntyre tackled him and trapped him down until police arrived. As Ferguson lay pinned to a seat, he repeatedly said, "Oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? I deserve whatever I get." 6 passengers died, and 19 passengers were seriously injured.
Weapon and opened fire. Police say at least 17 people were hit by bullets. 4 of them, 3 men and 1 woman, are dead. 3 are critically wounded.
Oh God, it's an absolutely terrible thing to have to see. Obviously, all the injured. Very difficult because as the doors on the train were opened and the engineers and people working the train knew that something had happened, so the doors in the train were not immediately open. I think some of the people on the train did not know exactly what had happened.
Ferguson was charged on December 8th, 1993. He remained silent during the prosecution and rejected to enter a plea. He was ordered to be deprived of bail. As he was led from the courthouse, a newsperson asked him if he hated whites, to which Colin Ferguson replied, "It is a lie." Trial and sentencing. According to trial evidence, Ferguson suffered from life-threatening paranoia, involving many races but generally centered on the feeling that white people were there to get him. At a certain point, his paranoia had pressed him into devising a plan of revenge. Right after a circus-like trial on which Colin Ferguson represented himself and strolled on, often repeating himself, he was found guilty and sentenced to almost 315 years in prison. As of the time of this video, Ferguson is in the Upstate Correctional Facility in New York. That's all for today, Outcasts. If you know anything about the story of Colin Ferguson and the Long Island Railroad Massacre, let us know in the comments section. And until next time, subscribe, hit that bell, and most importantly, stay insane.